Today on X, Bill Ackman went live. I was able to check it out for a few minutes, but the premise for the live was to talk about this merger idea of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Both of these companies I talked about before relating to affordability in the housing industry when I did that show. Today's show, I want to get into a bigger conversation relating to affordability, dive deeper into that for you. There's something that came across that I saw in checkouts online, but I didn't understand really what it was. And I want to set the stage for what this is because for me, it continues it continues down this path. It's true. If you think about younger people, their livelihood and future have been intergenerationally stolen from them. And you don't just got to look at the national debt of over $38 trillion, just wrapping your mind around that, but or student loan debt, but even just thinking about between generations, the purchasing power of the dollar and what you could get for the value of $1 50 years ago compared to today. So I want to talk about that, but let me bring it back to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Again, as a reminder, publicly traded company, but controlled by the government. That's for another conversation, another time. But these two companies back around 50% of the U.S. mortgages, and so the idea of them merging into one giant behemoth, you got to ask yourself too, how's that going to create more competition? Because again, for me, where government involvement can get out of industries where it just doesn't make any sense, it's creating more of a burden, and we can move more towards free market capitalism. I'm in for that. But I'm also in for limited government involvement in to help avoid monopolies and to create more opportunities for competition for small businesses getting started. So that it's important where something doesn't make sense. Uh, one, remember to filter your worldview through this power and rest of us. When that was shared with me, it just things that I thought didn't made no sense. I'm like, why is that way? All of a sudden, starts to make more sense to just get an idea of a clearer picture of what's going on here. And then where you don't understand something, lean into be curious and ask questions. It's continuously a theme in this show. It's how I move forward with what I'm sharing with you is where I don't understand something. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to be curious about it and ask questions. So what I want to get into is BNPLs. I want to talk about that. You may be familiar with that because we need to talk about this more. This needs to be a bigger conversation. There has to be more awareness about this. So we're going to get into that. But welcome back to the show. Excited to go again live today with you for the show. I'm liking going live. It's fun. It's getting into the rhythm of it. It's taking some time to get into the rhythm of it, continuing to improve it, but excited to get your questions to come in, your thoughts, what you disagree with, what you resonate with, and then continue to share this with friends and family. As I said, this is a determined movement, small business owners uniting and supporters of small businesses uniting, because I do not buy this narrative that America is inevitably doomed to collapse. We have the ability to make changes here and to be able I think about that for this country to be able to have America's future be a small business renaissance. I really believe the seeds are being planted that I believe this is the future for America as a small business renaissance made possible by free market capitalism. And it's going to take a lot of us. So there's a lot of work that we gotta get into, and a lot of different areas of focus here. And one of them is affordability. How can we create more affordability in our country and rely less on the government for that for our basic needs and more taking individual responsibility and ownership and continuing to preserve the freedoms that we have on an individual level. So relating to BNPLs, please let me know if you know about this and your experience with them. But because I want to understand personal experiences with it, but it's the acronym is Buy Now, Pay Later. So a lot of younger people are using these. You can see them on the checkout online, and I just didn't know that people are using them for buying groceries, takeout, concert tickets, and so it's like you're collecting more and more debt, and then if you aren't able to go traditional route of credit cards, you're relying on these, and so we're continuing to build the society into a debt society. And then what's going to happen then if it's debt society, if it's renting, instead of home ownership, going back to the home industry. Well, if you don't aren't owning anything and you're in debt, how much are you going to really care about where you're living, about the things that you have? And I heard this once and just hit me. It really resonated with me, and hit me to my core of like, when was the last time you washed a rental car? If you've ever had rented a car before, when have you ever washed it? And it's totally different from when you own your car. There's a deeper level of wanting to care for it, wanting to make sure that you're making this last for a long time into the future. And I think about that relating back to community and how we've lost the sense of community and wanting to support our cities and towns. There's a lot of cities and towns that are falling apart. And so instead of like really wanting to understand what's going on in your city or town, and really figure out how you can continue to improve it, what can happen is if you're just trying to survive in your day-to-day life. You're just so focused in your own small world that it's hard to be able to get out of that. And so that is where small business owners have to come in with their voice. It's a powerful voice that you have, and be able to raise awareness about what is going on and focus on making changes and working with different stakeholders involved in this, including elected officials, being able to have those conversations. So, uh, to think that you have to go then in debt to pay for groceries and do the buy now, pay later, I mean, that's not right. That is not right. And we got to look at ways of how we can create more affordability across the board in different industries and small businesses. That's where uh, small businesses play a big part in that. Because again, there are 33 million small businesses that employ 45% of the private workforce. And so there's a lot of work to be done here to figure out different strategies to be able to create solutions that, and again, I go back to American economist Thomas Sowell with this, where there are no solutions, there are trade-offs, and so you're never going to get it perfect. But where can we move forward with certain solutions that can have a positive impact and create better trade-offs? Because right now it's not working. It's just not. It's there is a lot of pain out there, and we've got to change this narrative. So what I got into was understanding more about the BNPL. I'm setting the stage for that because I want to get into your stories. I want to learn more about your experience if you use this, what its impact it's had. Because what keeps coming up for me as you look at student loan debt, auto loan debt, or auto loans, the credit cards, there are all these different forms of debt that are piling up, and it's like we've gotten consumed by this idea of let's collect debt. And I've had my own personal experiences with that and challenges with that. So there's got to be a shift in some way to figure out how to minimize the amount of time that you are experiencing that you're having to pay off debt, because again, that interest can add up depending on what type of products that you have. And when you are owning things, that that idea of owning your home, you then want to care for it more, instead of just renting a home. You don't so much care as much for renting the home, and you then care more about the surrounding communities, and you have a deeper connection to that. So relating it back to home ownership, it was interesting to learn more about how in 2008 the average first time home buyer was 30 years old. And then now in 2025, it's 40 years old for the average first time home buyer. And the share of first time buyers is at a record low of 21%. So that goes back to figuring out, okay, what can be some ways to make it easier for home ownership? And there were some ideas that were floating out there. I go back to, okay, lowering rates could be one. There was this idea thrown out there of the 50-year mortgage, which I don't want to have to think about paying down that a mortgage over 50 years. And so it's also looking back in history as to what was happening before 30-year mortgages. How can you minimize the amount of years that you are having to pay off this mortgage. What could be some other solutions? You could look into the tax code. Like, it's just figuring out what are some other ways to go about this, because that number, that average for first time home buyers it's got to change. It has to change, because I can't just to wrap your mind around that. 40 years old for first time home buyers. And then you think about the increase in rent, what the difference has been for the increase of rent. But all right, I'm gonna pause there for that one. But that what I'm taking the time to focus on it, because I want to again set the stage for you continue to dip our toes into these different industries, dive a little bit deeper. But with home ownership, that's one that I've been focusing more on. Another one has been relating to small businesses, brick and mortar stores. I think about restaurants, retail, the amount of, what was it? I'm gonna have to go back for, I don't know the exact years for this. So I don't want to say it, but it's been a dramatic shift from small businesses who used to own their buildings to now having small businesses predominantly, brick and mortar restaurants and retail that are now renting their spaces that they're in. And that shift, what I've been diving into to understand it more is, I go back to the 1986 Tax Reform Act, looking at the lengthening of depreciation schedule. I'm diving into that more, understanding that to see what was going on there. And then noticing what happened with the increase of commercial or increase of land prices over time, over the history here in the U.S. And then what I also noticed was that for landlords, there's an aging population of landlords that the exact percentage, I'm gonna have to reference back to it. I don't know off the top of my head for how many for the percentage of landlords are independent over age of 65. But there's an opportunity here coming up in the next few years, you would say within this decade, where there could be an opportunity to figure out how can small businesses that have a brick and mortar buy back their building. There are different ways from when you create the lease that you could potentially do this, where you have a certain amount of years on the lease, and then you have a first right of refusal if the landlord decides to sell. You could have a few other ways to go about this of being able to have better rates for loans in order to then support the buying of the building. But this is another focus that we got to continue to have more awareness about, because there is an opportunity here, a big opportunity here for a massive shift in who owns these buildings. From if you think of your commercial buildings. Man, the name, I'm just slipping on the name here today. I'm slipping on the name of that. But you think of like strip mall is like the example that was coming up. But there's an opportunity here, and it's going to be something we're going to keep talking about. And I would like to know your own personal stories. If you're a small business owner who has a brick and mortar store, are you renting? That'd be something to ask. Just if you go to a restaurant or a retail store and you know the owner, ask them, yeah, are you leasing this, or do you own the building? And my guess is you're going to notice a lot of them are leasing, and that has to change. It goes back to when you then own the building, you care more about your area on a deeper level. There is more opportunity for the small business owner to have, like I think about the potential security that you would feel if you know that you own the building and the rent's not going to continuously increase over time. And I wonder what that would be like for a sense of release. So if you do own your building as a small business owner, I would like to know that too, to know what your experience is like. But that's another area that I'm focusing on. And then the other reminder for home ownership is that in like the mid 1970s, going back to that, the average home price was like 3 times the median income. Now it's around 7 times the median income. So that goes back to what I talked about of this, 2 million lots that are being sat on by these building companies and these builders, and how increasing the supply can have an impact then on the home prices, and figuring out ways to get rid of regulations where it doesn't make any sense in order to continue to and increase the speed of permitting to be able to increase the amount of homes that are being built. So that is where we got to focus on incentives, understand that a little bit more. I'm going to take some more time to do that. But again, affordability is at the forefront for the conversation. And it's something that I'm going to continue to dive into for these different industries. And as small businesses, there is a lot of opportunity here. I'm seeing that a lot of opportunities in these different industries to continue to expand this movement of a small business renaissance that is forming here in the US. But there's one other thing I wanted to talk about here with you. It may come back to me. Oh yeah, payroll. Payroll's another one to talk about. Is payroll taxes. Think of a social security. uh, That is going to be for another day for the show to get more into that. But so many of these things are. It feels like we've got a lot of paths that are merging, a lot of connection points that are happening here, and it comes back to relate to ownership. Comes back to affordability, comes back to what programs are starting to run out of funds and going to become solvent. Or yeah, man, there's a lot. There's a lot here. So uh, I want to let you know that with affordability, there's a few different paths we can go into. I want to know specifically from you, what are the challenges you're dealing with in your small business relating to affordability? What is coming up for you from what I've just shared, for what resonates the most? If you are a supporter of small businesses, asking your small business, what are the challenges right now being faced? I want to know that, and specifically what part of the country. Because if we can start to get a clear picture, it becomes a lot easier then to figure out what could be the solutions moving forward to solve these challenges and create more opportunities for small businesses to thrive, and to help get more Americans to start small businesses and continue to bump up that number of how many of the percentage of uh, small businesses that employ the private workforce, increasing that number a lot. That's definitely, and localizing the supply chain. That's another thing too. So the one thing I wanted to correct from yesterday's show was the name of one of the companies I really struggle with. And so I was able to realize I messed up on the name. I want to correct it here. So it's NVIDIA is the name. I almost messed that up again. So NVIDIA is the name of the company that I messed up on in the last show. It's a struggle with that name. But what I want to take some more time later on is to talk about soon AI. I know got deep into the data centers, but this relates back to energy. And if we can make energy more affordable, then you increase the purchasing power of the household, and that can continue to fuel more opportunities of growth for the households and small businesses, the economy overall. And as I've said it before, small businesses are the heart of the economy, and we got to continue to figure out ways to continue to unite and be able to make substantial changes. And the urgency is there. I mean, the time is not on our side here. We've got to continue to push forward and continue to expand this movement and grow it. And so it is as I said before, a determined movement. And I appreciate your support in this. Again, you continue to fuel my courage to go in and figure out where the uncomfortable truths are, and where those come up, being able to communicate that to you and just be able to say, like, there's got to be changes here that have to happen. And so I have a lot of faith and a lot of hope. And that is something that I want to continue to share that with you, because no one can do this alone. It's going to take a lot of us to come together and a lot of work ahead. So I appreciate you. I'm excited to see you again tomorrow. See you then.